So this is the beginning of a new series that I'm going to work on and hopefully be getting out every Friday. I know this first video is going up on a Saturday, so already out of sync with the schedule. But in general, from next week, I'm hoping these kind of videos will be going up on Friday. And it's a new series where I'm kind of just going to talk about everything I've watched from the prior week, whether that's new watches, old watches, rewatches, sort of thing. So like whether it's something that's just come out, something that's older and I'm just catching up on now, or something that I've seen before and I'm rewatching, whether it's a TV show or movie. I'm just going to call it what I've watched this past week and what I recommend. I think it's a simple thing to call it because that's pretty much what it is. I'm going to split the video into doing both TV shows and movies separately. So I'll do like all the TV shows first, and then I'll go straight into movies and talk about them and what movies I've watched the past week. Saying I recommended something is pretty much just my way of being like, yeah, this is one of the more enjoyable things I watched this week, or this is one of the better things I watched this week. You should check it out. Not giving it a recommendation isn't me saying it's bad or don't watch it, just that I personally didn't find it to be one of the better things I watched this week. Anyway, I'm not expecting this kind of video to do super well. This is probably going to mostly be for people who are already subscribed and want to hear me talk about random TV shows and movies I watch, because it might seem on the channel like I only watch super nerdy stuff, but TV shows and movies I try and watch as much as I can. I love watching new things, love watching things I've never seen before. Like no matter the genre, I just kind of like seeing a bit of everything. So this is kind of I guess, a way for me to talk about the things I love watching that I've watched over the past little bit. Anyway, let's talk about some of this stuff. So starting with TV shows, and over the past week, I finally watched The Penguin. I watched episodes 1 and 2 when they came out and really liked them, but I wanted to hold off on finishing the show until I got a chance to watch The Batman again, because I hadn't seen The Batman since around when it came out. I have The Penguin in-depth review coming out over this weekend sometime. It might be Monday night, actually, now that I think about it, so look out for that. But to briefly sum up the show here, I loved it. I genuinely thought it was fantastic. Oz, Sophia, Victor, all of them. They're instantly some of the best DC TV characters in a while, I feel like. Sophia Falcone is one of the best DC TV villains, and I can't wait to see her hopefully show up in some of the Batman stuff in the future. Colin Farrell as Oz is just a tour de force. Like, you want to hate him, but they do such a good job at making you sympathetic for him at the same time that it all works so well. It's just such a well-written show. The music is stellar. I think Oz might actually have like the best villain comic book theme in terms of music out of anything I've heard. Like, it's so good and it's so well put together. The Penguin is just simply one of the best comic book shows you're ever going to see. It's also one of the best shows of the year, easily. Like, I do my rankings on where I place all the new shows from the year at the end of every year, and I've been keeping my list so far, and The Penguin is really high up there. I'm not going to spoil where it is because I feel like I'm actually going to make a video this year, which I've always wanted to do, where I just list off the top 10 shows of the year for me. But I feel like there's absolutely nothing that's going to push The Penguin off that list in the last month of the year. So get ready for that. 8 episodes, pretty sure it's a mini-series. I think they've talked about not wanting to do a second season, and that any new TV show set in the Batman universe will likely be based on a different character. But yeah, it's on HBO and HBO Max in most places. Over here in Ireland, it was Sky Atlantic. But check it out. I'd recommend The Penguin. So very different from The Penguin is Tracker Season 2. And Tracker is this CBS procedural show. Season 1 aired earlier this year, and Season 2 started in October. I think maybe it was late September, but I think it was October. It's coming out weekly on Disney Plus over here in Ireland, so that's why I've only seen the first 2 episodes. And I checked out the first 2 episodes of the new season over the past week. And the reason I started Tracker was because it stars Justin Hartley and also features Jensen Ackles. I started last year, or this year, I guess, the first season when they announced Jensen Ackles was going to be in it, and I was like, all right, well, now they got 2 people that I really like in it. I'll check it out. I'm a big fan of Hartley from when he was Green Arrow on Smallville, and then Jensen, obviously, from loads of things like Supernatural, all the times he's voiced Batman, The Boys, and also Smallville as Jason Teague. But look, it's weird to talk about this show because I feel like CBS procedurals are always very middle of the road. They feel like shows from 15 years ago that are still airing today. But Tracker is fine. It's actually kind of more enjoyable than maybe you would expect. Justin's character is, like the show says, he has to track down people, as the title would suggest, very on the nose. But sometimes it's just fun to have a show like this. Like, okay, I'm gonna watch Justin's character solve a case, and then we'll see what happens there. Like, it's never really more than that. And episode 2 featured the return of Jensen Ackles' character. He plays Justin Hartley's brother, and so it kind of felt like I was watching Supernatural in a way, because it was an episode where these 2 brothers were looking for some guy and the guy went missing, and it like links into a wider conspiracy or bigger plot. So it kind of felt like Supernatural in a way, where I guess Justin's character would have been Sam, and then Jensen obviously being Dean, because Jensen's character in this does just feel like Dean. I mean, to be fair, Justin Hartley's character also just feels like Dean. So, but yeah. Also, I feel like this stuff was filmed during one of Jensen's returns to the boys, because his look in season 2, episode 2, was pretty much just his soldier boy look. So it's like he wasn't allowed to change his style because he was coming back as soldier boy or something. I don't know. That's a guess though. Yep, Tracker season 2. So, what is the title for this? Is The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon The Book of Carol Season 2, or is it The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 2 The Book of Carol? I don't know. Anyway, I fell a little behind on the new season because it started in late September, and I only watched pretty much the entire season over the past week. I think I watched episode 1 when it first aired, and then the other 5 episodes I only watched over like the last week. But I was actually not as big on season 1 as most people. I remember when season 1 came out, and the general consensus from a lot of people was that Daryl Dixon was better than the main show had been in years, and I personally didn't agree with that. But I also think I've never been as big on Daryl as a character as most people always were. I always felt like in the main show, he was pretty layered and interesting up until the prison arc ended. And then once everyone was on the road after the prison arc, Daryl just kind of turned into this grunting character who stayed like that for the remainder of the main show. But in season 2 of Daryl Dixon, we're still in Paris, but now Carol is flying across the world to find him, and I was actually honestly really into this season as a whole. It started just okay with me with the first episode, which I think is why I didn't push to watch the other 5 until the season ended. But when I got into episode 2, I was like, okay, this is getting intense in a way that it didn't really let up for episodes 2 through 6. And then once Carol and Daryl are together, once they team up, the show very much starts to feel like some of the earlier days of The Walking Dead, which I really appreciated. The later episode also started to give some backstory and like lore and references to what the rest of the world or the rest of Europe was happening, or what was happening there during the apocalypse, because season 1 mostly focused on what happened to Paris. But like in the last episodes of season 2, they start mentioning what's happened to places like England and Scotland and Spain and stuff, and that was really interesting to me. Being from this part of the world, I was curious on that sort of stuff. If you want to hear me talk more about the Walking Dead stuff, I was actually on Darren's podcast last night, if this video goes up on time, where we're talking about all the Walking Dead shows. So I'll link Darren's channel in the description below if you want to check that out. Anyway, the show is airing on AMC or AMC Plus. Season 2 is 6 episodes. Season 3 is confirmed. It's already renewed, and it's set in Spain apparently. But yeah, I recommend Daryl Dixon season 2. So I'm talking about from season 2. Not season 1, not season 3, which is the new season, season 2. Specifically like 2 or 3 episodes in the middle of season 2, because that's what I watched this week. Season 3 actually just finished airing this week, and season 4 has been renewed, I think. So season 4 will be like 2 years from now. But From is a horror show airing on Epix, or whatever that service is called. It's been on my radar since season 1 first came out, because I remember the reviews for it were crazy good, and people were like, this is one of the most underrated shows on TV at the moment. And then when I heard season 3 would be starting soon, I decided to watch an episode a day so that hopefully I would be caught up on the show just in time. And I started this back in September. And then life happened. I got busy. I got distracted. And now I'm watching like 1 episode a week, if even. But I feel like I'll probably end up binging the final few episodes of season 2 and then all of season 3 together, maybe towards the end of the year, so that I can put From season 3 on my 2024 TV show list. But the best thing about From is that the best thing about the show is when it's focusing on the psychological aspect of the characters, because the basic premise of the show is that there's this road that randomly people end up on, and then they pass through this town, and then they realize that they're actually stuck here now and they can't leave, and that no matter what road they take out of the town, they always end up back in the town again. And then at nighttime, these people come out of the woods and they're like murderers and they kill people. It's kind of like, I guess, like Minecraft in that sense, where it's like once nighttime hits, all the monsters come out. It feels very much like a Mike Flanagan horror show. He was the guy who does a lot of those Netflix horror stuff, like Hill House, Bly Manor, House of Usher, Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass is so good, by the way. That's one of my favorite shows of the last few years. But I'm not a big horror guy, so the show is always at its best for me when it's focusing on the characters being like, can we try and escape from this town? How do we do it? And less on the actual horror aspect. Harold Perrineau, who people might know from Lost, plays the main character, and he's the best part of the show for me. Now, look, it's clearly a great show, but if I'm honest, a season and a half in, I don't think it's hooked me in a way yet, because I don't know. I feel like if I was in love with the show, I would have made time to finish season 2 and season 3. I will make time for it at some point because it's a solid show, but I don't think it's must see TV. I would have gone around to it if it was. Anyway, 3 seasons on Epix. They're all 10 episodes each, and you have a 4th season on the way. So Superman and Lois season 4, and if you've been on the channel, you know I've been talking a lot about Superman and Lois the past few weeks. As of recording, there is still 1 episode left to air. It's airing this Monday night before the show is finished forever. But in general, Superman and Lois season 4 has been pretty great. If you want to hear me talk about it in depth, you have a bunch of videos there to go look at. But and I'll definitely be making videos on the final, obviously, as well once it airs. But I have some issues with the season, mainly how it's where it's spending some of its time. I think sometimes it's focusing too much on certain characters that shouldn't be getting the amount of screen time they're getting, certain storylines that maybe don't need to be given this sort of precedence in a shortened final season. But in general, I've been more satisfied than I have been disappointed. It's giving us a great version of Lex Luthor, a great version of Doomsday. The Superman Clark Kent secret stuff is really strong. Like, the character stuff in this season is the best that the show has ever been, in my opinion. There isn't too much to say that I haven't already talked about a ton, but Superman Lois season final is going to be airing this Monday night on the CW. You can probably catch all the first 3 seasons there as well on the CW somewhere. I don't know how it works in the US. You can probably catch them pretty easy on the CW, as well as season 4 once it finishes. So yeah, I recommend Superman and Lois season 4. So The Flight Attendant season 2, and something I usually get into in the last month to month and a half of the year is to go through my watch list and start clearing up the TV shows that I never finished. Like going back to some shows that are still there on my list. I have this problem where if I start a TV show, I have to finish it no matter what. Like, I use a lot of TV tracking apps because I watch so much. And if there is a show on my tracking app that's like, hey, you haven't seen these episodes yet, I'm like, I have to, no matter how I feel about the show. You know, it's might be an autistic thing. But with The Flight Attendant season 1 first came out on HBO Max in late 2020. I watched it as it was airing. Season 2 then didn't come out till around April 2022, which was during a very stressful time of college for me. So it completely slipped by where I just did not have the time to check it out. But then during the HBO Max WB reshuffling thing during late last year and early this year, the show got cancelled officially. So season 2 is the final season. And despite being cancelled, like I said, I still felt like I had to finish it, so I binged the entire season last weekend. And I don't even really know how to describe this season. I guess the show in general is about Kaylee Cuoco. She plays a flight attendant who is constantly roped up in murder mysteries and FBI, CIA shenanigans. That was season 1, and that's what season 2 was. And it's a fine show. Kaylee is the best part of it, and she's the most enjoyable part of it. To be honest, I'm not sure if people were annoyed the show got cancelled or not, but I'm not personally overly annoyed it got cancelled. If there was a season 3, I would have eventually had to watch it, but I definitely wouldn't have been rushing out the door to see it. It was never must-see TV in my opinion. Anyway, I think both seasons of The Flight Attendant are still on Max if anybody's interested. Both seasons are 8 episodes long, so it's a short enough watch. The Great season 3, so another show that was left on my list forever. I've only actually watched the first episode of the new season as of the recording of this video. But The Great is a show starring Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas, who's going to be playing Lex Luthor in next year's Superman film. They play Empress Catherine the Great and Emperor Peter III of Russia in the late 1700s. And season 1 came out in May 2020, season 2 came out in November 2021, and I watched both seasons around when they came out, and then season 3 came out in May 2023, which was like my last month of college when we were focused on editing our final projects and stuff like that. So similarly to The Flight Attendant, it was a very stressful time for me. I was not watching much TV that I didn't need to see. I think Superman and Lois season 3 was the only TV show I was actually making sure to watch as the episodes were coming out during this time. But the show is kind of like an absurdist comedy satire style thing in a way where it plays on the fact that so many of the scenarios and situations that these historical figures were involved in were crazy enough that it's kind of funny, and that's pretty much the angle the show always goes at. Hoult and Fanning are far and away the best thing about the show. Both play their characters so well. Hoult especially is fantastic. It's every second line coming out of his mouth is hilarious. And it's one of those kind of shows where you kind of forget about until it comes back and you're watching the new episodes and you're like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty good. Like, I enjoy my time with this show. Season 3 is the final season. I don't think the show was officially cancelled. I'm not sure yet, obviously, if the show ends on a cliffhanger or not, because I haven't seen the rest of the season. But I I know that it was announced as being the final season months after it came out. So I'm not sure whether this is a situation where it was cancelled, kind of, or if they just ended it and didn't want to come back to it, sort of thing. So we'll see. I'm not going to recommend the show until I get deeper into this season, to be honest. But The Great has 3 seasons. They're on Hulu, all 10 episodes each. They are lengthy episodes at like 50 plus minutes each. So that's the thing. It is a bit of a commitment. But yeah. And The Old Man season 2 is the final TV show from this week that I want to talk about. The Old Man is an FX show. Season 2 aired in September of this year. Season 1 first released in June of 2022, and it was a show I was watching when it first came out. Like every week I was watching it. Jeff Bridges plays the main guy. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this show. I've only watched the first 2 episodes of the new season because it's on Disney Plus over here, and the way that they dropped all the episodes at once, but it was kind of just an easy show since it was on Disney Plus to put on in the background while I was doing other things, so I could finally catch up on the season. Now that I've started the season, I'll probably make an effort to rush through it before the end of the year, but it's a fine show. Jeff Bridges is just doing spy shit in the Middle East. There's a lot of flashbacks to when he was a younger guy. It's whatever. I think in the US, it's on FX or Hulu. Season 2 has 8 episodes. It has not yet been renewed for a 3rd season. Not sure if it will be. I'm also not sure if season 2 ends on a cliffhanger, so keep that in mind. So now on to movies, and I watched 3 from this past week. To be honest, I thought they were all pretty good. So first off is The Batman. I rewatched The Batman for the first time since early 2022, since around when it came out. The Batman is directed by Matt Reeves, and it was released in March of 2022. I rewatched it, obviously, because I was watching The Penguin, and I mean, The Batman, it's genuinely one of the best comic book films of all time. Like, I don't know. This is clear in a way my favorite Batman film, personally. Like, Matt Reeves just, he gets the character. I was talking on Twitter, and I was like, I really hope James Gunn does to Superman what Matt Reeves does with the Batman, where it's like, not to, tone-wise, but just Matt Reeves showcases what makes the Batman great. I want James Gunn to showcase what makes Superman great, if that makes sense. Robert Pattinson is a phenomenal Batman, and his version of Bruce Wayne is so interesting despite that version of Bruce barely being in the film. Just honestly, just everyone in this film is like one of the best on-screen versions of the characters instantly. Andy Serkis' Alfred, Paul Dano's Riddler, Jeffrey Wright's Gordon, Zoe Kravitz's Selena Kyle, John Turturro's Falcone, and then of course Colin Farrell's Penguin. They're all just so good. Best of the best in terms of Batman lore and castings and writing and just everything. Can't wait for part 2. I hope it's during winter the way this one was during Halloween. I recommend The Batman. Next up is Gladiator 2. So I saw Gladiator 2 in cinemas. It was released in November 2024, obviously, directed by Ridley Scott. I think Ireland actually got this film a week before the US did, because I think we had our premiere here before most other countries did. Great cast, Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, Joseph Quinn, Connie Nielsen. Sorry if I messed up that name. I know the reviews for the film have kind of been all over the place. Some people saying it's great, some people saying it's not great, some saying it's just fine. Whatever. Look, honestly, I was never the biggest fan of the original Gladiator. I only watched it for the first time like 2 or 3 years ago, but I was like, it's fine. Like, what a lot of the reviews are saying Gladiator 2 is kind of what I felt the original was already like. So this wasn't too much of a surprise for me, but I don't know, maybe it was the cinema experience surrounding it, but for me, I actually really enjoyed a lot of my time with Gladiator 2. No spoilers, but I will say that the film takes a turn after a certain huge character moment, and I felt like once the film made that turn, the whole film in general got significantly less interesting. For like the last 40 or so minutes, I was like, this isn't, I don't know, the first 2 hours make the film out to be a certain way, and I felt like the final 40 minutes felt very different to the first 2 hours, and I wasn't sure I was into that, but until then, I was genuinely having a good time with this film. Maybe it is a film you need to see in cinemas to enjoy, but I recommend Gladiator 2. And Judgement at Nuremberg is the final thing for this week, and it's very different to everything else on this list. Directed by Stanley Kramer and released in December of 1961, Judgement at Nuremberg is a black and white 3-hour film that focuses on a slightly fictionalized version of the Nuremberg trials that took place in Nuremberg, Germany in the mid to late 1940s. And the trials, if you don't know what they are, were all about prosecuting people who were involved in or part of or knew about the war crimes being committed by the Nazis during or before World War II. So it was like a lot of the the people in the military and the German military and just involved in various areas of the German army and the Third Reich and stuff like that, that were privy to or knew about or did nothing to stop a lot of the bad things happening, essentially. And the film focuses on an American judge who's brought in to try 4 German judges who worked with the Nazis and were responsible for allowing terrible, terrible things to happen. And so the film cuts between the American judge and members of the American military who are arguing for the maximum penalty for these judges, while also showing a German defender who is arguing for why these judges shouldn't be accountable. And if I'm honest, this is the best thing I've watched this week. It's magnificent. This is the kind of film you watch and you go, I love movies. You know, this is the kind of film Tom Cruise probably watches and goes, I love movies, I love cinema, sort of thing. Like, every second scene in this film had me saying to myself, oh, okay, this is some of the best acting I've seen in my life. There'll be monologues or speeches by characters that you're just drawn into. The writing is great, the directing is fantastic, and it's such an important film too because of what it teaches you and what it tells you about the horrific things that happened in the world back in the 1930s and 1940s. When you think that these things are not even that long ago, like less than 100 years ago this was happening, it's crazy. If you pick one thing, one movie or show from this video to check out, please make it Judgment at Nuremberg, because is the best thing on this list. I recommend Judgment at Nuremberg. But yeah, that's kind of what this new series will be. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, so if you're here, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas for things in this format that you'd like me to change, please do let me know. Any suggestions will be 100% taken on board. If you're somehow new to the channel and this is your first video, then please subscribe. If you're not new, then a like and a share is really appreciated. Thanks so much and have an amazing day.